Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1204 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Electronic Products Recycling Association. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. And Canna Cabana. The lowest prices on cannabis. Guaranteed. Over 150 stores across the country. Learn more at cannacabana.com. Joining me today, making his Toronto Mike debut, is Chris Finn. And co-hosting with me is future FOTM Hall of Famer, Blair Packham.
I'm here. Hello.
Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Blair.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello there. So I tweeted that I had, Blair was returning. Because, Blair, what is this, like your fourth or fifth?
I think it's my fourth. Yeah. And
it goes like this, the fourth, the fifth.
Exactly.
And a couple of TMLX events. But I said there was fresh meat. That's you, Chris. So
I saw that on Twitter last night, and I was like, I guess I've been canceled. The 50-something fresh meat. I'm more like a over-steamed
you're
chuck.
rancid.
Yeah, I'm like a
Rancid.
very chewy stew.
Chewy Stew. I love that guy.
That's my
That's my
Chewy Stew is his
favorite rapper.
Yeah.
wrestling name. Okay.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I have a note for Chris. Well, we're going to get to know Chris, and we're going to catch up, and I have some topics for both of you, but I'm going to read a note from a great FOTM. In fact, I mentioned Blair Packham played Toronto Mike listener events in the past. One of them was TMLX at Great Lakes Brewery, where Blair Packham opened for this gentleman. Danny Graves wrote me an email last night. Danny said, Chris Finn is great. A good buddy. A motel regular. Glad you're having him on. So, because Danny is owns a Parkdale bar, and apparently you're a regular.
I sort of stopped going around the pandemic, but I was just short of having a little plaque with my name.
And a mattress.
And a mattress, which, but I it's still a great bar. I just rarely go out anymore. Maybe one good thing that came over the pandemic is saving money and not going to bars as much. But Danny is a great buddy and a
great singer.
Yeah, a fantastic singer. Yeah. And I miss his solo nights at Motel. I would stumble over for that. I don't know if they're doing music there anymore, but
we got to get those back.
We're going to ask Danny.
Yeah.
If they are, I want to play there.
Always quite moving.
Well, you know what? I'll just have like an unofficial TMLX at the motel bar in Parkdale. We'll make sure Danny plays and Blair Packham plays and Chris Finn will be there. They sell Great Lakes beer there. Do you ever consume a Great Lakes beer?
Do I? I ordered their home delivery so much over the last couple of years. I got a Christmas card. Personally signed by everybody
Peter
who works
Bullock?
there. And once they were dropping off a couple of cases, and the guy said, "Hey, how's the band liking the beer?" And I said, "What band?"
What's your favorite Great Lakes beer?
I like I like a lot of them, but I am liking the pale ale these days. I also like the light beer, the Great Lakes Lager Light.
Okay.
And occasionally I'll get thrown off by one, and then I realize, I didn't read the. Maybe it's too pumpkin-y or something like that. But I mean, overall, their products are fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're leaving here with some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes.
Unless I drink it while I'm here.
Unless you drink it while it's here. Which, by the way, when I get Blair going on a topic, I can run upstairs to the fridge and get you a pale ale. Did you want one?
Oh, I'm okay.
Oh, you sure? Okay.
Yeah, a little
Let me
early,
know,
even
because
for me.
is it early? Okay.
I might.
It's
Who
5
knows?
o'clock somewhere, as they say.
If the Irish in me kicks in. Who knows?
And Palma Pasta, too, while I'm giving you some gifts real quick here. I have a lasagna for you in my freezer. You're leaving here with it's a frozen lasagna from Palma Pasta.
So good.
This is great because I'm actually, as a coincidence, I'm on the lasagna and beer diet, and it's pretty terrible.
It's good for you, actually.
No, I'm not gonna lie, it's a bad diet. I mean, these are delicious products, but I wouldn't recommend. I don't know.
Good
why
for your
I
taste
tried
buds, bad for your waistline.
Not a
right?
anyway. Yeah.
Blair, how many lasagnas have you had in your experience as an FOTM?
Actually, only 2.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I had some on site at the TMLX
Oh yeah, because
events.
they fed us there at those 2
Yeah,
events.
but in my freezer only 2, and each time I've had one, I thought, and I thought it again this time. I thought, how will I make that fit in my freezer?
Right.
So, but I will, and it'll be great. My son actually, who barely eats anything other than pizza and burgers, I said I was coming out. He said, "Will you bring a lasagna home?"
Right.
I said,
That's
I hope so.
why he keeps asking you to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, can I come back?"
Exactly.
Because we're feeding your boy.
Yeah, exactly.
They're a freezer staple.
Yes,
New freezers and fridges should come with a frozen lasagna.
that's right.
You got. I mean, it can be in there forever. but
Girlfriends too. Now that you mention it, just it should just be a thing that gets bandied about.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of girlfriends, Blair, you seem awfully happy. Like I follow you on social media, and we just had Valentine's Day yesterday, and you're just like, you seem like you're in love.
I'm in love, and I'm in love with when I'm in love with a beautiful.
But won't this
woman.
ruin? Like you kind of have a thing going. I feel like you being in love is bad for your brand. Maybe am I wrong? Am I crazy?
Well, yeah, my brand, such as it is, if anybody gave a crap about my brand, it would hurt me. But it's not gonna hurt me because, in fact, it'll win me all over all the romantic people because I'm feeling very lovey-dovey.
This is a post Valentine's Day statement if I've ever heard one.
Chris, are you in love
Man.
or just with Blair?
Man,
All right.
do we have to go there so soon?
All right, I'll have a beer. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm bitter right now, actually.
Okay, good.
Which is sort of my natural.
I was going to say
state
Your
anyway.
default setting.
He
Yeah.
can be very funny when he's bitter, though. So keep poking
Okay,
that bear.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I got some this is how it's going to work, Chris. We're going to get to know you. We're going to spend some quality time with you. But I have a few things off the top that are kind of Blair things, but you can chime in, of course. But this is now, mid-February, and I have not had Mark Weisblot in my basement this entire calendar year. So his last visit was the last week of December. Have you noticed this, Blair Packham?
Of course I have. I really, really love those. I always love his appearances, and I love his speech cadence, and I love the stuff you guys talk about, but I also love
Sure.
the way he talks about it because he, as I observed, his very strong presence always makes you recede into the background, and
And I've quoted that often.
yes, and which on a normal episode, I don't want you doing any receding at all. But with Mark, I find him really interesting to listen to, and I hope it's not because he feels like, I think you said it's because he's regrouping, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah, like I'm still like, I sincerely believe he'll be back. In fact, if I were a betting man, I'd say Mark Weisblot is in this basement this coming spring. But
There you
he
go.
absolutely needed so this is a TMDS approved hiatus for Mark Weisblot.
And-
I have to be clear about that.
And when I imitate him, as I do,
Would you mind
and
doing
I'm
it
just
now?
about to, yeah. But I want to give this preamble in case he's
Yeah.
listening.
Which he hopefully is.
Yeah, and I've said this about him before. Mark and I have only met once, but I really like him. I like his brain, and I like needling him a little bit, and I like imitating him. But it's not in any way with any malice or anything like that at all. So I'm about to do it. Here we go. Toronto mic'd. It's funny you should mention that because we have Chris Finn in the room right now, and he has the audacity. Anyway, I'm going to stop now.
Okay.
But,
I think you detected this as well, but when I was chatting up Alan Zweig on
Oh,
the program,
God.
he has a similar cadence.
well, I sent you a text and I
Yeah.
said, if you take that and you speed it up about 30%, you
Right.
got Mark
Right.
Weisblot. Yeah.
He's like a slow, so maybe that's how Weisblot will sound in like
He'll be more
15,
mellow.
20 years or whatever.
Or after he has some Canna Cabana,
I was obsessed with his documentary Vinyl.
It's so
Yes.
good.
Like,
So
it is so
good.
good.
I
Yeah.
really went down the rabbit hole with that. It really was an interesting character study, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really, really was. And by the way, I
Yes,
was out with Michael Zweig last night, Alan's brother.
Wow.
Who scores Alan's movies and who's a dear friend of mine. We were roommates back in the 80s. And he's a wonderful guy who you should have on the show.
Sold.
Very,
Look,
very interesting guy.
listen, absolutely, I will do that. I know when Alan Zweig was here, which your name came up, Blair. But
Okay, I have to address that for
Go
a moment.
ahead, yeah.
Because Alan, he's so funny. Oh my God. Alan, Chris, you'll enjoy this. When Mike would say, well, you're a friend with so and so. Let's say he didn't say my name right away, but then he said, "What about Blair Packham?" He said, Alan had to be very precise about everything. He said, "Well, I wouldn't say that Blair is. Well, no, he's a friend, but some of these people you're mentioning are acquaintances,
Right.
And he had to put them on one camp or the other, acquaintance or friend, and it was like." Dude, relax. Like, even like an hour later, you're still doing the interview. And he's saying, well, I don't know if I'd call him a friend exactly about somebody else. And it's like, okay, relax. But
whatever happened to just buddy or schmuck?
That's right.
Just simpler days.
I am going out for coffee tomorrow with Alan for the first time in a long time.
Really? Is that
Yeah,
because,
it's because I
you
heard
heard him on Toronto Mike?
Yeah, and he sounded great, and I missed him. So
Okay.
I asked him if he wanted to go, and he said yes. So.
There's a list of people. So Steve Packham will listen to
Going
Toronto
out
Mike.
for him on Friday. No, I'm kidding.
Doesn't surprise me. So Packham will listen to Toronto Mike, and then somebody will be on he hasn't talked to in 15 years, and that'll prompt him to reconnect. And then I'll get these notes like, "Oh, I'm having a beer. I'm having a coffee with who so and so because you reminded me of them or whatever." So it's like that's awesome.
It's very sweet, and and my experience of listening to Alan was very sweet, and it reminded me of why I liked him so much.
Alan did not care for the Doug and the Slugs documentary.
No, he did not. He did not.
Chris, have you seen this?
No, I didn't know there was one.
Gem, it's on CBC Gem.
Oh, okay.
I actually thought it was fine because it was done like from the neighbor, the young neighbor, the daughter of the neighbors basically did this doc from her perspective growing up next door to Doug. And I thought it was okay. Like a lot of FOTM showed up as like talking heads on this thing from like Denise Donlin to, there's Chris, who's there? Yeah, so many. So many I can't remember them right now.
Yeah.
So many.
So many unimportant
But I was
people.
wondering like, any interest in a would there be a Jitters doc in the work now that we have our Doug and the Slugs?
But here's
doc?
the funny thing, the guy who puts together many of the documentaries, music documentaries that we watch, whatever they are, Rush, Beyond the Lighted Stage, that ZZ Top documentary that's on, I think it's on Netflix, but a whole lot of them, the whole Hip Hop Nation. That it's David Steinberg who is the legal guy behind all those, and you'd think the guy who plays drums in the Jitters might be able to put something together for the Jitters doc, but no.
So you introduced me to David Quinton Steinberg,
Yes.
who has now been over a couple of times and will be over again, and now you're introducing me to Chris Finn. So tell me off the top here, and again, I have more things I want to get to, but I'll sprinkle it throughout. But how do you know Chris Finn, Blair?
Chris and I met about 30 years ago. We were mutual fans of the Odds from Vancouver, and I think we met at Lee's Palace.
I don't remember I believe you. I don't remember the exact night. I was. You're also mutual friends with my then girlfriend Debbie Lillicow.
Yeah, but I think we all met that night.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
I love the Odds, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah,
God,
fantastic,
big
man.
fan. And Craig Northey just recorded on one of my songs, and he sent the tracks, and I realized I meant to download them this morning. But anyway.
And you're really connected to Craig because you're buds with Steve Page, and Northey and Page do so much together.
They're in the they
Trans-Canadian
play
Highwaymen.
together, as well as Craig is in Steven's own band.
Right.
Yeah. But so Chris and I met then, and so I was friends with Debbie, his then girlfriend, and we became friends. Chris and I became friends, and we have a lot in common, including our bitterness and our
But that was before you fell so madly in love that your bitterness is dissipating.
But that's only to piss Chris off.
We share a similar outlook.
Yeah, we definitely do.
And it has been that long, my God.
I
It was
know.
I was
Like
still living
90
on Queen West.
93
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, you were above the shoe store. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I'd met Craig before that through Kids in the Hall.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's right. Was Odds playing the night we met at
Lee's Palace.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, but just to go further though about knowing Chris, he's a beloved friend of mine. But beyond that, he's so accomplished. He's so. Can I swear? I can't remember.
Yeah, you can swear.
He's so fucking funny, and really, honestly, when I go to his front door, I will repeat the joke he closed on New Year's Eve 5 years ago. Every time I knock on the door, and all it is this. Hello, and it always cracks me up. But he's very funny. But he's worked on Well, he worked on MadTV, worked on This Hour Has 22 Minutes, and worked more recently on the Mercer Report, and is like a professional funny guy. Now, of course, the pressure's on for him to be funny here, but he's not getting paid, so you all.
He's getting lasagna. He's got to earn that lasagna. Chris, no pressure. And the Great Lakes, we know he's a big fan.
I'm going to sweat off this lasagna.
That's right. So
Being funny, pounding funny.
So I love this guy, and I'm glad he's here. And I really was excited for you guys to talk, so I'll shut up now.
So, Chris,
thanks for the jinx.
Had you be honest with me? I can handle it. But Chris, had you ever heard of Toronto Mike before Blair? I don't know. Maybe you guys were having coffee or something.
I had
okay,
heard before.
now you have my attention. Let's go.
Full disclosure, I'm not a huge podcast listener. That's my bad. But I had heard of you before. I'd seen Toronto Mike on Twitter too.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear maybe Danny Graves on Toronto Mike? There's an episode for you to go dig up.
I will go dig that up. I did some research, and I should get more involved in the podcast thing. I've listened to, not to mention another podcast in your podcast.
You can do that.
I listen to WTF occasionally, Mark Maron's
Never
podcast.
heard of it.
Yeah, okay, let's keep moving.
I just saw him in a movie, and he was very good.
He's a good actor.
Yeah.
He's a really good actor.
Yeah.
He's very
This
natural.
movie's about addiction, and
He would know about that.
yeah. Well, he was great, and what they call For Leslie, I think is the name of this doc. The woman who stars in this it's not a documentary, it's a movie. But the woman who stars in this movie is nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars this year. So it's not exactly an unknown film, but I think my wife went to the wiki page and it made 26,000 in the box office. So it's not exactly Avatar
it's not ripping it up.
It's not Top Gun here, but it's great.
I worked with him once in '97. It was one of the last regular stand-up gigs I ever did. I'd been back from Los Angeles for about 3 or 4 months, and I hadn't done much stand-up and don't hardly do any now. But I got a call from the Laugh Resort, which was a great club back in the day on Lombard Street, and they said, we're bringing in Mark Maron for a weekend, and do you want to open the shows? MC open, you go on, they do 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah.
And I was so rusty. He was a very nice cat. I can remember bombing so bad every show. Like just,
well, at least you're consistent.
Boom, like unreal, like so bad that like by the late show Saturday, sometimes the resort could be a little cruel if you were from Toronto because they brought in a lot of American names, so you were sort of like, oh, here's the local kid, blah blah blah,
right.
Which wasn't a great attribute to that club, albeit it was a great club. But I was so disheartened by the whole thing, I didn't even go up to end the show by the Saturday late show to say goodnight. I just left. just left and went and had cocktails with a waitress.
That's the Irish
like,
goodbye.
Yeah, I kind of, which was wildly unprofessional, but maybe the funniest thing I did all week.
All right, so take me back now, and obviously we'll discuss Rick Mercer and these. So Rick Mercer's an FOTM. Ron James is an FOTM.
I just saw Ron a few nights ago. We watched the Super Bowl together.
Nice.
Yeah, we when we hang out when we can. I would say a lot because he's on the road a lot. We see each other 4 or 5 times a year, which is a lot, I think, for any comedians to see each other.
Yeah, because I see you like 3 times a year.
Yeah, we don't. So. I would just, you get older. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
No, you're not a comedian, Blair. Great musician, but not a comedian. But so Ron James has only been on twice, I think but both times he was like so quick with that style of speech that he delivers with the maritime thing, and I can't even imitate Ron James. But is he like that when you're hanging with him, like watching the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay.
He has the gift of gab, and he's constantly touring, so it doesn't leave him as quickly as it leaves someone like me who doesn't tour anymore at all or do club dates or anything.
But the way it fired, I almost felt like these were things he had like scripted at some point and memorized because they were just
yeah,
rapid
he does
fire.
That. I have always compared his energy to like there's a bat loose in the cottage, and you're sort of fumbling around for a badminton racket we got to get it out. And not only is he one of the greatest comedians this country's ever produced, he's one of the best audiences. He, like, if something's funny, he cracks up for you. He'll run around the room laughing his ass off, which makes you feel really, really good. Most comedians just look at each other and they go, yeah, it's really funny. I hate your guts.
Yeah. No, well, yeah.
There is a quiet, simmering resentment usually. But we crack each other up. We always have a great time. We had a lot of fun on Sunday, and I'll see him again in a few months. We worked together a little bit over the pandemic, and it was a riot.
Yeah.
Okay, man. So you've been involved in all this cool stuff, and Blair mentioned MadTV, and this hour is 22 minutes. So we're gonna get to that, but bring me back, like, because I'm really like I want to learn more about you, and then I have some general topics I want to discuss. Especially, we recently lost Burt Bacharach, so I want to talk to Blair about that, because I hear he's got a stellar Burt story that I have to capture. But like you mentioned, you lived in the States. So what? You wanted to be a stand-up comic? Was this the?
I was when I was like, where was I born and stuff?
Well, you don't have to. I mean, yeah, sure, okay. Like, I'm looking to see, like, were you funny guy in high school, like a class clown?
No. I wanted to be in a band, but my bum didn't look good in jeans.
Well, Blair's does look great, so I can see.
But I didn't. I was. I sort of ostensibly grew up in Ottawa, East Coast roots, and I lived in the States when I was a kid too. But a club opened in Ottawa in the mid '80s. And I started doing open mics with people like Jeremy Hotz and Norm Macdonald.
Slow down.
Sarukis and Lisa Gay Tremblay was a comic. And
so how well did you know Norm back then? Just from the scene?
Really well. We did our first paid road trips together. I remember I wrote a thing about it. It's on, I forget where I posted it, but we did. There was a club in Edmonton that we flew out. We were both still living in Ottawa. And he headlined and I emceed for him. And it was a really, really great time. We took the bus down, and I'll never forget this.
Yeah.
Because the flight was out of Toronto, and we were living in Ottawa, so we took the bus down. The bus was full, so we thought, we're screwed, we're going to miss the flight. But it was back in the day, it was like 86. They had to throw another bus on. So this guy came up and said, it was just you two, the driver, and we got on. So it was just Norm and I, and it's a very sweet memory for me. It's a very Kerouac, just smoking cigarettes, and we found a pack of cigarettes when we were running low, just talking about movies and artists we like and stuff. And we both lived in Toronto. We weren't super close in Toronto, but you never forget the guys you started out with. He reached out to me. I didn't know he was sick. And he reached out about a year before he passed away, and he said, my mom has the same birthday as you, and I never knew that. How come I never knew that? I guess I should have known then that the guy was sick, because he wasn't a sentimental guy as far as I remember him. And then the next thing we tweeted back and forth a couple of times, and then he left us. Yeah, it's very sad. I never sort of got to say a more proper. You never forget the cats you started out with. Never.
Wow. Did you know when you were starting it with him that he was destined for bigger
everybody
things?
did. He was better than everybody immediately, and always was. Always.
So good, Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, I mean, we were struggling on, I had no trouble believing I was an open mic comic if you saw my first performances. But Norm had a structured act, jokes that fit together with a point, beginning, middle, and end from the first time he was on stage. He was always good. Always. And an odd cat. Here's a detail about the guy.
Yeah, please.
It's not necessarily funny, but it sort of sums him up a little bit. I remember running into him around the old downtown Yuck Yucks Club, which was a great room in its day. And he had just we were both doing spots. It was like a Tuesday night, and he had just come from Sam the Record Man, and he bought a new Dylan tape. I think it might have been Slow Train. I can't remember. But he took it out. He was going, I got the new Dylan. He took it out of the plastic case, and he threw the case away. And he just put the thing in his jean jacket pocket. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, wow, man, it's like a wrapper, man. What? Like that's how he thought a little bit. It wasn't just the cellophane. The hard plastic was just
hard plastic went
what,
too.
What are you talking about? And it was like no sort of thing in his eye that.
It's like
yeah. I've got what I need, and this is it. Yeah.
Wow, did you spend any time in these early stand-up days with Mike Macdonald?
Yeah, I knew Mike really, really well.
Because, I do love talking to stand-up comics, and it sounds like Mike was like a stand-up comics comic. Like, so the masses might not be too sure, although I remember him quite well. But
Well, I think both he and Norm should be on the Walk of Fame. Mike Macdonald was like a band. He was like a punk band. I mean, he was a different kind of comic. I've never seen a more physical comic. And we all stole his gestures. Like he was a dance instructor when he was young. A lot of people don't know that. And he and he studied mime, and he never wanted anybody to know that. But that's how it worked its way into his act. He was such a physical, menacing presence. And, before everybody's uncle had 10 minutes of stand-up like now, I'd say Norm for a while. No, Mike, was like maybe the greatest comic in North America. And he toured coast to coast, Canada and the U.S.
So tell me this then, because
and like 3-hour shows.
You've got Norm and Mike, unrelated by the way, but they have similar last names. But they're both, like you said, you put them on like the Mount Rushmore or whatnot. But one of them ends up, on Saturday Night Live and becomes, internationally famous. The other doesn't hit that kind of level of fame. I'm just wondering, what was the difference there? Like, what made Norm appeal to the masses and Mike be the comics comic?
That's just show business. I don't think there is a hard. Same thing in the music business. Sometimes you see a band that made it, and you go, "The fuck are these guys?"
Well, you're talking about the Gin Blossoms.
We'd be talking about a lot of different bands.
The singer's a friend of mine.
Okay, I take it back.
He's
I'll pick on a different band.
Great guy.
I would never. I
Eve
don't have the musical acumen, but I don't. Yeah, I don't think there is a. I think Norm was also a lot more TV friendly.
Yeah, well, maybe he's more handsome. If we can just, I mean,
definitely.
Mike's not ugly or anything, but Norm's a very handsome man. He's got those. He's a handsome guy.
But I mean, yes, true, and also his act was more pliable. Like you could see him being a fake news guy. Mike was always much more menacing, topical, and subversive for like.
Well, it's interesting you tell me that. I never knew about Mike and the. I almost said Mike and the Mechanics, but Mike and the Miming.
They were also hysterical.
Mike and the Miming, which would be a good band name too, I suppose, because I think if you think of
it would not.
When you think of a manic comic, your first thought would be Robin Williams, and I understand Robin Williams was a mime, like in the 70s. He was miming.
They're very different comedians. Mike Mike had set pieces. He could riff, and he was good off his cuff, but Robin Williams was off the cuff.
That's just what he did.
It was just what he did. And also, Mike never took I learned this from Mike, too. He never took the mic out of the mic stand, as physical as he was.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, I don't know if it's still around, but in my day, there was a lot of snobbery around that. If you were considered a little lesser than if you took the mic out of the stand.
Really?
Isn't that odd? Yeah.
Let me just take this mic out of the stand right now.
That's crazy. The stuff you learn, the deeper you go into various, if you learn more about bass players, bass players think this, and it'd be like, what? Really? The things that matter to these niche groups. It's weird.
And it's absolutely, I tried to do it once, like long after, I don't know, I was like a touring stand-up for about 10 years. And I remember about 5 years in, I decided I'm going to do a set tonight. I'm going to take this goddamn mic out of the stand, and I'm going to break this. And I flop sweat, like on an easy Thursday show where you just should have done an easy 20.
And it just changed everything.
I couldn't remember anything.
That's fascinating.
Just the muscle memory wasn't there. You don't realize how connected I was to that umbilical cord of keeping them. Every gesture, every move you make, some body part went somewhere, right?
Yeah, right. And now you're hamstrung. Yeah,
it's weird. I'm freaking out just thinking about it. I gotta go.
Well, listen. Okay, that brings us to the end now. So we got Norm and Mike. Okay, so shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. 2 great comics who were gone far too soon. 2 guys, but a guy who's still with us, thankfully, and an FOTM. Jeremy Hotz.
Love him. Talked to him the other night.
Yeah, Hotz is buddies. I produce a show for Humble Howard Glassman, and I know they knew each other from back in the day.
Yeah, Howard was a great stand-up too. I don't know if he does it anymore.
Before the pandemic, he got back into it.
Cool.
And then I think the pandemic, now he's like bumming around Mexico. Like now, this is the life he's living.
That can be funny.
Is he still doing the podcast?
Yeah. So we just do it. You can be anywhere if you have internet.
Wow.
And he brings his good mic with him, and
I'm heading down to Mexico.
You can sing a song. Have you written a song about that? Oh, Mexico.
That's the song I wrote. Yes.
Who did Thinking of You down in Mexico? Edward Bear.
Edward Bear. Yeah.
That's Canadian.
I put that in everybody's head now. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Hotz, right? Jeremy Hotz, funny SOB. I'm trying to think of where I first. Oh yeah, he had this like a stand-up that was airing. I want to say on Global or something, some kind of a comedy special where he talked about Mr. Christie, you make good cookies, just don't mail them, you asshole. And he was,
yeah.
And I could almost remember the whole routine, but just a funny son of a gun, that Jeremy Hotz.
He was an impossible. I've known Jeremy a long time, and there were 2 guys that I hated following. and when we were on the same circuit. Jeremy was the first one, and Harlan Williams was the second one, because they had this. I was a topical comic, politics, lifestyle, more adult, religion, and these guys were such escapist comedians. They were such kids on stage, and what they did was so, people got to be so childish. I'm not saying their acts weren't sophisticated or anything like that. It's just that they were great escapist acts, and then you'd go on with the headlines, and everybody would be like, "Boo! Johnny Sirius is here in the leather jacket." Ew.
Were you friendly with Eric Tunney?
Yeah, we were really good friends.
Yeah,
it's a heartbreaker. Nobody really knows what happened either. I mean, we know some circumstances, but that one really blew my lights out. Yeah.
The reason I mentioned Eric, again, gone far too soon, but I bring him up because you mentioned Harlan Williams, and I mentioned Howard Glassman. Do you know what Harlan Williams, Eric Tunney, and Howard Glassman have in common? Besides being, stand-up comics.
They all bombed at the Oshawa Club?
They all co-hosted Ed the Sock's night party.
That's right.
There's your link right there.
Yeah, I should have. I think
Well, that's where I first saw Harlan Williams, was on Cable 10. This is before City TV would air. It was a Cable 10 show, but Harlan Williams and Ed the Sock, and I thought it was hilarious.
I don't think I ever watched it because that was long enough ago where I was immature enough to just be envious. And sort of go, why are these guys getting to host?
Right. See,
which is what a young comedian is supposed to do. And you get older, you're happy for everybody. If they get a used car commercial, you're like, yeah, go, man.
So, Chris, you do like 10 years of stand-up as your...
Yeah, about that. I started in about... I still do the occasional set, but boy, it's not like riding a bike. I'm not very good anymore. But I was okay back in the day. I did all right. Made a living. I got on regular nights around 86 and then started touring about 87. And, the chicken wing
What about
circuit.
Jim Carrey before I leave this era of stand-up?
Met him a bunch of times, but I don't think I was ever on the same show with him. But he was a very nice cat.
Because when I had Breslin on, I asked him about Carrey, and he said he didn't think Jim Carrey was very good. So he sure didn't see that coming.
Yeah, neither did I.
Okay.
The famous show where he opened for Godot. Do you remember?
No, but Godot's an FOTM, but no, I don't know this.
He opened for Jim Carrey. So I recorded 2 nights of Godot at the Roxy Theater in Barrie, and they made it into an album called Best Seat in the House. And the promoter had asked Godot, who should we have as the opening act? And they decided on a comic because it would only use one microphone. They wouldn't have to move any gear.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was there. We didn't record the set, by the way, but he came and did the set, and it was all impressions. It was like Kermit the Frog, and.
Remember, he used to do like Bruce Dern and stuff.
Yeah,
Clint. I feel like he did Clint Eastwood.
He did,
Yeah.
and
he did the eyes.
People threw stuff at him like it was a rock crowd. It was a Godot crowd.
Yeah, nobody be able to pull that out.
No, it was horrible, and I blamed him at the time, but have since realized that who could win in that situation?
Mike McDonald.
Yeah.
Actually, you're speaking, goes full circle. Mike McDonald was the guy who opened for bands because he had the rock and roll tennis racket thing, and also he could go out and talk about, like, in one bit, being stoned for like 20 minutes, just one joke. And so it would get the crowd. They would, he's one of us.
Right.
He could do it. There's a great story about him opening for Bryan Adams at the Commodore, I think, in Vancouver. And this is right around when, I guess, Adams is breaking. Only Hiding from Love, was that his first? Like 82?
Well, okay. Well, I don't know if he's broken at that point, but he had the
first airplay first.
Okay,
yeah,
maybe local, maybe okay.
And they love him in Van, obviously, and so he's at the Commodore, and Mike is opening, and Mike's walking out, and the whole crowd are stomping up and down, going, "Brian, Brian, Brian," and Mike's standing there with his tennis racket suitcase, going, "Oh man!" Suddenly, this old stagehand walks out, and he's about to open the curtain, and Mike, "Brian, Brian." And the stagehand looks at Mike and goes, "Is your name Brian?"
Wow. Okay, I love it.
It's
when
funny
it
you
comes
talk
full
about
circle.
like Jim Carrey. The reason Jim Carrey broke, not only because he's wildly talented, is because he went to the States and he worked his ass off. There's only so much you can do in Canada. It's an anomaly to be a successful touring comedian here a little bit. You can make some money, but it's like the greatest part-time job in the world.
Unless you're Ron James.
Unless you're Ron James and a few other people. Brent Butt still But I mean, they also play the
Speaking
stage.
of Craig Northey, who did all that stuff for
He wrote
Corner
the
Gas.
theme
Yeah.
song with
Right.
Jesse Ventura. Jesse
For Jesse the Body?
Jesse the Body Ventura.
Remember him and Bobby the Brain
Jesse,
Heenan?
what's his
You
name? I
guys
forgot
remember
his
this?
name.
And Gorilla Monsoon?
That was one of those accidental free bits. There you go. Free chuckle. What's his last name, Jesse? Is it Jesse?
Jesse Valenzuela,
Valenzuela.
who is the lead singer in the Gin Blossoms.
Wow.
So
Okay, you know what? We should shut
yeah.
it down right now. It's not going to get better than this. Like, I've done this a long time. Okay.
don't use the Gin Blossoms as a punchline in my
Till I
presence.
hear
Yeah.
from you.
No,
love that song,
Actually, I'm going to
actually.
stick. I think it was Jesse Ventura. I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to get like pissed
That
off
man
and
was
irate.
governor, you know.
I don't know about your politics, buddy.
Did you see that coming? That's
Yeah.
my next question. Did you see that coming? And he was in Commando with FOTM Ray Don Chong.
Oh wow. Yeah, there you go.
It's all coming together. Okay,
It's all
so
coming
I realize now we only have the
Okay.
90 minutes. So
Yeah.
and I have Burt Bacharach, and we need to talk a little bit about John Tory, and I got a couple other things.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna talk about my hair for a moment. Very important things coming up. You mentioned Mike McDonald and weed, and I just want to say, anyone out there who consumes cannabis, Canna Cabana will not be undersold on cannabis or cannabis accessories. They have over 150 locations across the country. CannaCabana.com. Okay, so you got it, Chris, where you're off to is CannaCabana.com.
I will. All those who love weed and funny websites, please go to my website, thecanadianer.com. Biting political and lifestyle and topical satire, a form of comedy under attack from the humorless. And I would like you to subscribe. It's not Nagware subscription. We just send free jokes. And it's, after the Mercer report went off the air, I tried taking a stab at more serious writing and sort of back to pitching sitcoms. And I realized I'm no good at this. What I'm good at is writing political satire. And so I started his website called The Canadianer, which is such. And I'm urging everybody to go look at it.
It's really, really good.
It's pretty funny.
It's pretty
I don't
funny.
mind saying.
The Canadianer, which is like Canadiana with an R at the end.
No.
No. So sorry, I'm screwing that up. Okay.
There's a couple of ways, like
Just-
I sort of thought of it. What's more Canadianer than that? So it's
So,
Canadian with an ER.
With
Gotcha.
ER at the end.
Gotcha.
Canadian
ER at the end.
ER.
Okay. All right. And I do follow you on Twitter, Chris. I know this is stuff that usually I do at the end, but let's do it right now. I follow you on Twitter, but there's nothing on your Twitter account to say you're Chris Finn. So it's like I had to take Blair's word for it that it was your account.
I have two. I have the Canadianer,
Okay.
and I have Chris Henry Finn, and I usually post the headlines on both. And there's a Facebook page as well.
My son's middle name is Henry.
Nice.
Yeah, it's mine too. I kind of like it.
Well, because I think it'd be cool to go by Hank.
Yeah.
Is that just, am I wrong?
I
think
don't
it's
know.
cool.
Nobody ever. I just
Hank's a cool name.
I just think Chris Henry Finn sounds very literary, even though I'm not.
Yeah.
You know.
Or imagine Christopher Henry Finn. Like that's a.
And getting into kind of more of a Christopher Robin thing then. I don't know.
Okay. We don't want that.
I
Okay.
was in a Christopher a bit withering because it's a lot to say. And you sound like a spoiled kid in short pants.
I can see the cardigan.
There's no tough guys named Christopher.
That's. What about on The Sopranos?
That's true.
He's more of a maniac.
Yeah.
But you're right. He
Spoiler
was
alert.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in the new season of White Lotus too. It's and every time
yeah.
I see him on the screen, I call him Christopher.
Michael
I go,
Imperioli is fantastic.
So
actor.
and a musician too.
And a musician.
Yeah, as a band.
And
Okay.
former bar owner.
Yeah.
That's right.
just like Danny Graves.
There
Okay,
you go.
Yeah.
so you 10 years or whatever on the road. Why do you come off the road, and what do you do next?
I started getting to screenwriting, and I got a job through a friend, Brian Hart, who's also a fantastic
No relation
comedian.
to Corey,
No.
because we did Brian Adams.
I'm
Now we
picturing-
need to do Corey Hart.
I'm picturing his face at the
When
comparison.
you asked that question, yeah.
Blair knows Brian. Brian's from Winnipeg. I'm just
And-
going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
But Brian's a very accomplished guy. He was
Yeah.
one of the original writers on Kids in the Hall, Jon Stewart, and then he became co-executive producer of MadTV. And I went through my paces. I submitted. I flew down and I met with them and ended up getting a job through Fax Bar and Adam Small and Brian, who were the producers of MadTV. And I did a year there. And
That's a big show.
Yeah, I didn't want to go back. I didn't I was homesick, and I kind of blew it. I should have stayed. I don't mind admitting. All you young comedians out there, if you get a gig in LA, stay.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because Ron James came back too.
He was there a long time. He was there 6 or 7 years. I mean, I don't look at it as like failure or anything like that, because I got a job on 22 right away. I think I just found out something about myself, is that I'm not really cut out for Los Angeles. I like visiting. It's a world-class city for a reason. A lot of friends there. But I found day-to-day life, I don't know, just off-putting. And that's, just me, I'm sure. No disrespect. But I learned invaluable lessons and met a lot of great people.
Any maybe a quick story or two about MadTV, anything at all? It just sounds like that's a cool gig for a Canadian guy.
It was an eye-opener. It was during the, I don't know if it's not necessarily very funny, but I remember going to work one day and there were all these buses outside. And I went in and I asked Lauren Dombrowski, who's one of the other writers, I was like, she was from Boston. I said, "What's with the buses outside? We got a bunch of extras today?" And she went, "No, it's the verdict today, dummy." And I went, "What are you talking about?" It was the OJ verdict, which I had completely lost interest in. And I was like, "So what do you need buses for?" And she was like, looking like, I'd never felt more like a rube. She was like, "Well, I think if he's found guilty, there's going to be some people who might get upset about that." I said, "So we're going to get in the bus?" She's like, "You're an idiot." Yeah, they're going to get in the buses and take us somewhere safe if they have to.
Wow.
They were preparing for the riot.
Wow.
Yeah. Not necessarily funny, but I did find LA. It's the only American city I've really found that in. The racial thing's really real. I don't have to tell anyone that, but in a way that doesn't affect your life like it does here. I found it pretty menacing at times, and a clear division.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is depressing. Not that was a big reason I came back. Didn't help.
So when you come back, you get this hour is 22 minutes, which in the Canadian landscape, that's a big deal.
Yeah, at that time, late 90s.
Especially then. Yeah.
That was the original cast. It's where I started. I'd met Rick Mercer before that. I met him at Just for Laughs in 94, 95. Then I did the LA adventure and I came back, and that's where we struck up a working relationship. And Greg Toomey, Mary Walsh, and Kathy Jones, the original cast, yeah, which was a really fun gig. I did that for 3 years.
Okay, amazing. And then walk me through the rest of it. So what do you do after this hour is 22 minutes?
Oh, floundered. I really did. Oh, you know what? Actually, no. I wrote a couple episodes of Corner Gas, which was fantastic. Brent Butt and I go way, way back.
He's also an FOTM.
Yeah, well, he's fantastic.
I have to tell you when you mention FOTMs.
Yes.
Blair will tell
Compulsively,
you.
I would say.
I have to.
Yeah.
And we remain very good friends. I was lucky enough to be involved in that. And another show he did called Hiccups, which I went out to Vancouver and worked on. And then the Mercer Show started in 2004. I remember that because the Red Sox won. And we went 15
Red Sox
seasons. Fan? I am a Red Sox fan. I got East Coast roots. When I was born, there was no Toronto Blue Jays. So I just, if you're from...
No, that's when I allow it. Like, not that I can stop it, I suppose. But like I think, who's it? Pakin's also a Red Sox fan. But if you fall in love with baseball pre-77, then
you get
you're excused.
And also, Boston was the Mecca, was the New York to, if you're from St. John's or Corner Brook or Halifax or somewhere, Boston's the go-to town. There's still tons of Red Sox fans out there. And
sort of like when you meet, because I got a guy down the street who has a big Detroit Tigers bumper sticker, and I'm like, hey, we have a team, and he's like, yeah, but I'm from Windsor. No, he's from London, and he says in London we root for the Tigers. Like this is just
and Windsor and that whole
Windsor,
Chatham,
for sure, Windsor,
and any around the lake area, or Cleveland Guardians too. Huge fan base down there.
Okay, so 2004. You're on the Rick Mercer. Is it the Rick Mercer Report?
It was a Monday night report in the first season.
Okay.
And then they switched us to Tuesday.
I remember that.
Yeah. They had all these T-shirts and all this marketing.
You could have kept the name. It would have been ironic. Like,
It but would
really
have confused the audience.
Early days were crazy. I mean, we lived there.
Yeah.
It was a great confluence of talent and will, because I think we all at that time were of an age where if we do this right, we can run this show for several prime ministers. And that's exactly what we did. And there was a welcome lack of pissiness and competitiveness. Everyone was at a point in their career when professionalism meant everything. Didn't matter who had the good idea, as long as we have the good idea. So, in the early days, it was Darren Jones was on the show. He had like an 8-minute segment, which we would go out and produce. And then so Thursdays were like 9 a.m. till like midnight. And then you come in Friday and we'd all go to the taping. It wasn't until about 6 years into the show we started to figure out how to do more stuff from home, which was good. By that time, you sort of needed it. But in those early days, we all lived there.
And this Darren Jones is the Darren Jones from The Buzz.
Yeah.
The Buzz, I'll say, because I went to U of T at the same time as Darren was there, and I used to see him on campus all the time. And I loved The Buzz. Like, maybe I just watched a lot of Cable 10 back then.
He's naturally television savvy. And he was a really good writer on the show, too, because I don't think he started with the spot. They hired him as a writer, and they tried a couple of other people to do remote stuff, and it didn't go quite well, and Darren fit in perfectly. I think we did 3 seasons with him, and then he went on to do his own stuff.
Well, he's on the radio now. It's like
he does a lot of stuff.
Kiss, I think it's Kiss 92.5. I wouldn't screw that up. But the Mr. Mo is the other guy on The Buzz. Darren Jones and Mr. Mo.
Yeah.
Wonder what Mo's up to these days.
No idea.
I got to track down Mr. Mo. I want Mr. Mo on Toronto Mike.
I don't think I ever met the gentleman.
No.
I don't think if you weren't a stand-up back then, nobody met each other. There was an era where like improvised, like Second City people and like Yuck Yucks were the only games in town. And those streams never crossed. There was a real snobbery between them. So I went the other way and I studied at Second City and I did stand-up. And I'm glad I did because it gave me a sketch background. I understood a little more. There was just such snobbery between the two. And I always thought it was kind of a drag.
Am I right that Mercer has a new show?
He hosts a show on CBC that introduces young comedians. So I guess it's a new show, but it's not like Rick Mercer introduces young comedians.
Okay.
I don't even know if his name's in the title. Is it? I don't know. I'm embarrassed to admit I haven't seen it because I watch young comedians and I go, oh, that's really funny. I should be doing that. I think I'll rewatch The Sopranos.
But you can do it. Like, you could get back out there. And
I do occasionally. Someone will phone like a benefit or something. It's a lot of work now that muscle is a weird muscle.
To get back in gear.
I would have thought, I'm surprised. I heard you say this earlier and I'm surprised because I've never done stand-up, but I would think it is a bit like riding a bike. No?
No. Well, maybe for some people. I certainly wouldn't speak for everybody. You know where I do like to, occasionally I'll do a spot. I think it's the best indie room in town. It's called Hirut. It's like Danforth and Woodbine. And it's an Ethiopian restaurant that has a stand-up night the last Friday of every month. And the guy who runs it, his name's Kevin McDonald. He helped me with the Canadianer. He's a great guy.
But not the Kevin McDonald.
No, not Kids in the Hall Kevin McDonald. Different. And he's
also an FOTM.
Exactly. He's a really funny comic who runs this room. And it's got a lot of newer people, but a lot of established people drop in too. It's got a great vibe to it. So it's sort of one of those, you don't know who's going to show up kind of places. And people are there for the comedy. It's not there's nobody yelling you down. And the family are great. This Ethiopian family, they wanted to do a stand-up room because, they come from a background where you can't say whatever you want to say.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
So it adds sort of a nice element to it.
Food there is very good, too. And that's where I last saw you do a stand-up set. It was great.
God, yeah, it's been but I always say I'm going to go do it. And then Friday rolls around and I'm lazy.
Did you ever hear the story? We talked earlier about Mark Maron and his WTF podcast, which probably even has more downloads than Toronto Mike, believe it or not. But possibly we haven't seen evidence of that yet. But okay, I do remember the time he was booking Kevin McDonald, and somehow the wrong Kevin McDonald was booked.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard this story? Like, there's a Kevin McDonald who made Last King of Scotland and some other pretty good films, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember, Chris? Which he wanted the Kids in the Hall, Kevin McDonald, right? Or is it the other way around?
He wanted the Kids in the Hall, Kevin, and he got the director, I think.
Okay, yeah. So,
it would have been funnier other way around.
Right, yeah. No doubt, okay.
Yeah.
But I think Mark would, certainly comedy savvy enough to know but that one got away on him.
So what are you up to these days? Because Rick Mercer's show, is that, what are you up to these days, Chris?
I'm just doing the website.
You may have heard of it. It's Canadianer.
It's the Canadianer.com.
Remember, Canadian with ER at the end.
Also,
Right.
That's www.
World Wide Web.
Canadianer.com.
That's right.
It's on the interweb.
Yeah. You can get that at home now.
I'm new to this.
Okay, I'm going to. I know there's a great story out there. We lost Burt Bacharach recently, and I'm just like fascinated. He was a prolific songwriter, and when you learn the songs he composed, and you're like, oh, that's him too. Like I went down this rabbit hole of like every song of his that was in the top 40, and it took a long time. Okay, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of songs he wrote that hit the top 40. But I'm going to lean back from the mic, and I'm going to listen to Blair Packham, because Blair Packham has an amazing Burt Bacharach story. Blair, the mic is yours, buddy.
Thank you. It you know what, Mike? It is an amazing story. It amazes me looking back, and this is how it went. So tying it in with the comedy world, Mike Myers had just had Burt Bacharach in one of his Austin Powers movies. And Mike's best friend and our mutual friend, David McKenzie, this was around the time of 9/11. And so Mike had reached out actually to Burt. I thought it was the other way around, and was worried that Burt was stuck in Toronto because air flights and stuff like that, and asked him if he wanted to be amused, basically. And Mike then asked David McKenzie to round up some friends of his, musical friends, and they would meet with Burt for dinner, and dinner was on Mike. So David called me at my studio, and he said, "You want to have dinner with Burt Bacharach?" I was like, "Yes," and then David said he couldn't come right away because he lived out of town at that point. So he lived in Minden. And so David said, I need you to go to the restaurant first, and then I'll arrive, and some other people, I'll invite Kurt Swinghammer and Michael Philip Voivoda and a few other people. So I go to Prego in Yorkville, and I walk in, and there's Burt sitting at a table, smiling, his blue eyes, and he's wearing a sweater tied around his neck the way that you see him in so many photographs, casual. And I say to him, "Hello, I'm Blair Packham. I'm one of David's friends. I'm a friend of Mike." And he said, "Well, welcome. Have a seat." So I sit down, and instantly we start talking about anything but music. And it was amazing. Well, and it's because of this. On the way there, I had called my mom because I was so excited. I called my mom and I said, "Guess who I'm having dinner with? Burt Bacharach." And instead of going, "Oh, that's wonderful, Blair," because that's how she talked. "That's wonderful," she said, instantly, she said, "Ask him about Olive Hall." Like that, as if she'd been waiting for the call, as if she knew that I'd be calling to say I was having dinner with Burt Bacharach.
She's just been waiting for this moment.
Yeah. So I said, "Olive Hall? What do you mean?" And she said, Burt used to come to the dorm when we were at McGill, and he dated Olive Hall. She was so beautiful. And he would come to the dorm, and he would sit and play the piano and entertain us girls, and while she was getting ready. And so I sit down in the restaurant, and we greet each other, and how do you know David? How do you know Mike? And, I knew how he knew Mike and so forth. But we're talking, and I should have said, "So you're a songwriter." But I said, I called my mom. "I'm so excited to meet you." I called my mom, and the first thing she said was this, and I imitated her. "Ask him about Olive Hall." And he went all dreamy-eyed. Like he seriously did. He went like, "Olive Hall? I haven't thought of her in 50 years. Wow." He said, and he's still looking off into space, and he said, "She was so beautiful. I knew her at McGill." And then he turned to me and like very urgently said, "Do you know what happened to her? Do you know where she is? Can you get in touch with her?" Like clearly Burt was in the market for a girlfriend, And I said, "No, I did ask my mom, and apparently she married a neurosurgeon and moved to the American Midwest." And he went, "Oh, okay." And he said, "She was beautiful. I would go to the dorm, and while I was waiting for her to get ready, I'd play the piano, and all these girls would hang around." And I said, "Yeah, my mom was one of them." He went, "Wow, that's amazing." And then we started talking about other things. My baby boy had just been born. He's 21 now. And so the idea of being a father was scaring the shit out of me. And also relationships get tense, or they get transformed often when you have children, and I was experiencing a bit of that and didn't really know why and didn't know if I was doing the right thing and so forth. And I just said, he said, so you married? I said, well, yeah. And a matter of fact, I just had a kid. And he said, oh, that's great. And then I said, but the marriage is, it's being tested. They often are, and that's what's going on here. And he said, oh man, yeah, I can relate to that. And he started telling me stories about how it was with Carol Bayer Sager, who he was with. Wow. And he's like so open and so candid. And he told stories about Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown at the Grammys, and how she had to be replaced like at the last minute because they wouldn't come out of their trailer. They were, they were in the trailer acting crazy, he said. And so I'm conscious of, celebrities, and they, my experience with celebrities is they don't want to say bad things about other celebrities, which is nice. It's a good impulse, but it's a little disingenuous maybe. So I said, well, what was the problem? And he said, she was high on crack, as if I was the biggest idiot in the world.
And then he asked you to leave the table.
Yeah. No,
Get out of here.
I was like, oh, of course. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but it was a lovely evening. The other people arrived after about 40 minutes or so, and David arrived first, and he sat with us and talked about his friendship with Mike and so forth. And then Kurt Swinghammer arrived, and he had a guitar that he had this already because he's the biggest Burt Bacharach fan in the world. He'd taken the headstock of the guitar and he put a little black and white picture of Burt on it, and he wrote on it in silver pen, Burt. And he'd already done this. It wasn't for this evening.
Right.
He'd already done this. And so when he pulled it out of his case to ask Burt to autograph it, you could see Burt was like, okay. like a little freaked out,
Right.
It's intense. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, but he did it, and he was very, very gracious. And it was really a lovely, magical evening.
Do you think Burt went on like Craigslist misconnections? Olive Hall.
Olive Hall.
This is Burt Bacharach. Seriously.
Yeah.
Olive Hall.
Yeah.
Quite a name, too. And the fun fact, which I only learned about when Burt passed away, is that he went to McGill. My daughter's there right now. I had no idea Burt Bacharach went to McGill.
He didn't like it. I asked him about going to McGill, and he said, no, I went to 2 other music schools, and he listed them, what they were. I don't remember, but he said, yeah, McGill was shitty. At the time, he said, I'm sure it's better now. And I think it is better, by the way. I know many McGill grads who are amazing.
Hence his 1974 hit, McGill is Shitty.
That's right. Lyrics by Hal David. But.
Right, of course. Yeah, Hal gets the short end of the stick here. Like he's such a key part of that
those
songwriting
lyrics
machine. Yeah.
Those lyrics for those songs, Do You Know the Way to San Jose?
Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, all those lyrics are so vivid, and so they've got these incredible little details to them, and they're really amazing. And he does get the short end of the stick, even by Burt, who I didn't have the nerve to ask, why are you and Hal David not a thing, because apparently there was some
well, that was your chance, man. He
I know.
Like he was ready to talk about anything.
Well, I think I didn't want to ask him stuff that you could read anywhere.
Yeah. But as soon as you sat down, what's with Hal David?
Yeah, come on. Hal's in the kitchen right
That's
now
called
working.
real talk.
Yeah.
Waiter, drinks.
Oh, wait.
So Blair, there's something else we have in common that I didn't realize. We both have 21-year-old sons. Like that's something we have in common.
That's yet another thing. Yeah.
I have to add that to the list here.
Yeah, that's right. My boy is at York University and doing very well.
You ready for this? My boy's at York University.
Oh my God.
Wow.
In engineering?
No, your boy's smarter than my boy.
I don't know. My boy's pretty smart. He's got a huge.
This is
brain.
why I didn't have kids. See, there's always something happens, the rivalry,
and then it crashes. Yeah,
that's wild. Okay, I love that Burt Bacharach story so much. I'm going to cut it out and put it into the Ridley Funeral Home Memorial episode for February 2023. So.
Amazing.
You can add that to your CV.
Okay, well, and
your bio.
But Mark Weisbot won't be there to.
Well, even before. So the chronology of events here is that he actually told me he was done with that part of the episode anyway. Like before, so it was bumming him out. He said, "I don't." Like I mean, this is him talking. So he was feeling bummed out about spending 90 minutes on people who had passed away. I guess
I can see that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I told him. I said, well, that's okay. Do the other part. Like we don't have to. I said I'm happy to take that on myself, which I have. I did the one for January. I'll do the one for February. I said I'm fine with that. And then he booked actually Ed Keenan from the Star to come in for the first Thursday of January because I had a recurring meeting in my calendar that was for 3 hours at 2 p.m. the first Thursday of every month. That was like Weisblot time.
3 hours? That's unbelievable.
Of that, yeah, that would be.
3
a little
hours.
intense.
It is. Yeah,
Little
it's not.
intense,
By the way,
yeah.
not for everybody. For every
No,
Blair, and there's a bunch of Blairs out there.
Yeah,
I got so many notes. Shout out to Mike Apple. But
You're gonna have to find like a Scotch sponsor.
for every Blair, there's
It's already got a weed
Beer is
sponsor.
not-
You'd
I
think
got
that would
weed
be
in
enough.
by
Listen.
methamphetamine.
we have our beer and our weed. It's still not quite enough, but yeah,
Brought to you by-
an acquired taste. But if you acquire the taste, it is your crack, right? Like that is.
I enjoyed it immensely.
It's good.
Okay,
beer.
so
Yeah.
so then he booked Ed Keenan to come over because the idea was Mark Weisblatt, Ed Keenan, and I. Although I would recede into the background for sure, okay?
Inevitably.
For those two for sure. But it was going to be all about the like the history of alt media in
Oh,
Toronto, and
yeah.
it was with a Gen X focus. But it was basically, they were going to talk about Now Magazine and iWeekly and what's next and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then he took him. He said, "I'm out. I need some time to figure my shit out," because he had just got the St. Joseph Media had just parted ways with him on 12/36. And if you noticed, you're not getting your email newsletter. I haven't had one since I think October or something.
Yeah.
So he needs to figure his shit out. So I said, okay, like, let me know when you're ready to come back. And I don't have I can do the Ridley Funeral Home segment myself. I don't have, he's a unicorn. I don't have a backup Weisblatt to talk about like things like Dina Pugliese, who announced that she's leaving breakfast television today. Like normally that would be one of the big topics we discuss in the first 90 minutes. I don't have are you, who's a good backup?
Some speculation about management and what the real motive might have been behind her leaving. No, the question is, if you're asking, am I the guy to talk about that? Would I have to do that voice? That's the question.
Only if you wanted to, because remember, this story has a lot of dimensions to it. One is so Dina, and I don't know how familiar you two are with the breakfast television crew. Maybe you're not familiar at all, but this happened today. So
we get up. We have the schedules of the rock music.
I'm aware it exists.
yes, well, that's enough. Okay,
I understand
so
television
Dina's been there
exists.
since 06. So
Okay,
do some math on that. That's a long time.
Yeah.
She's about my age, so that's a big chunk of her adult life there. So Dina announces she's leaving the show, which I believe it's her call. Like I actually sincerely believe that she's quitting that show. Like no one tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Dina, you're quitting the show." Like I think she's quitting the show because she wants to leave the show. But then you have this whole interesting dynamic that I would normally talk about for hours with Mark Weisblatt, which is that Rogers poached Pooja Handa and Gurdeep Ahluwalia from CP24 and have them hosting the CHFI morning show. When we always talked on my program about how we felt these two TV stars would end up on breakfast television. So there's anyway.
Yeah.
I don't have I don't have a backup Weisblatt. He's a
Sounds
unicorn.
like a lot of intrigue, the backstabbing,
Well,
poaching
Mark
news
knows-
people to come and run your show.
Mark knows about that stuff. You see, I'm
Yes,
not
he
media
does,
savvy
right.
in that way at all.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
Well, it's a full-time job. and,
Yeah.
he's committed to it.
He's
so.
definitely, and he really does, and he hears, he has his ear to the ground. He knows what the backroom stuff is.
You would have to love it because
Yeah.
there must be a
Yes.
huge burnout
Yeah.
factor in that kind of thing. All right, who was doing the book about Gen X? Was it Toronto centric, or if it was a book you were talking about, someone doing something about the Gen X scene in Toronto Now magazine?
it was it a book?
No, it wasn't a book.
No, it was going to be a special.
Maybe Cam
on-
Gordon's writing that book, but he might be. I think I was interviewed for a book like that.
It was a
by
really,
him, but-
really great time in Toronto comedy. The mid to late 90s was fantastic. There was like a sketch kind of revolution, and the Rivoli was a
hotbed. Yeah.
great room for that.
Yeah.
So many good sketch groups that came after Kids in Vacant Lot,
Yeah.
who had a show, I think, for 2 seasons on CBC.
Is that the one that opened with the Sex Pistols?
Yeah.
I watched that.
You know, one of the guys in the Vacant Lot is on the Jitters album cover that has "Last of the Red Hot Fools" on it. I told you that story.
Yeah, somebody said a band should have 5 members in it or something.
Yeah, it was Dean Cameron actually who said that.
Right.
And who was at the time vice president. I think he became president of Capitol Records. But he said we see you as a classic 5-piece rock band, and I'm like, well, the Beatles are a classic rock band, and they don't have keyboards. So
Led Zeppelin, hello.
yeah, hello.
Well, there's so many.
Yeah, but anyway, so we didn't take it seriously, and we got the bass player's brother, who happened to be Paul Greenberg from the Vacant Lot.
There you go.
Wow.
So he's on the album cover. David Quinton Steinberg is on the album cover.
Yeah.
He didn't play on that album at all. He was fired.
But at least he plays. You had a guy in the album cover who had wasn't even a musician.
He doesn't play music, no. And he's in the video for Last of the Red Hot Fools, sort of hopping behind a keyboard. He doesn't really play it. He just hops up and
Wow.
down.
I just one smooth talking dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Onto the album cover,
I
right
know.
into band, doesn't even play the.
Before we get too far away,
tambourine.
you guys, in that great Burt Bacharach story, I gave it 3 greats there. You
That's-
dropped the name Kurt Swinghammer.
Oh.
Would you mind taking a moment, because he's in my calendar to make his Toronto Mike debut?
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, he's a very, I can do an impression of him too, but he won't like it, and I love Kurt, so I won't do it. And not that I don't love Mark Weisblatt, but I have loved Kurt Swinghammer for decades. And,
for longer, even though you worked with Mark at CIUT when it was just
well, yes,
UT Radio.
I think he was a couple of years older than me. He hates that because I'm 10 years older than him. But
well, he can't come on. He has no microphone anymore.
That's right.
He's been
I can
neutered.
just say it. That's right. Yeah.
He doesn't have a podcast.
So when Mark and I worked together at CIUT, I looked up to him. He was a few years older, and he's aged well. Anyway, okay, I'm going to stop that. Swinghammer is an incredible guitar player. He's a great songwriter and singer, a terrific producer, and he writes music for film and TV. But beyond all of that, he's a fantastic and very accomplished visual artist.
Very much.
And he's known for all of these things, as well as being a funny guy and a lovely guy, and I love him. He's just so great. He lived in the Niagara area and moved to Toronto to become an artist and succeeded. He did a concert, or he's doing a concert actually in a week, I think, that I can't go to, unfortunately. But I think it's called Songs for Mrs. Yao, and she was his art teacher in Niagara. And he's having doing a concert for her, and she's going to be there. This is his high school art teacher who encouraged him. Wow. He does stuff like that. He did a whole album about a Russian cosmonaut, the first female cosmonaut, and made a concept album about that. He's done album covers for David Wilcox and all kinds of interesting people. He's just a.
I would say I know him a little bit. He's a sweet guy.
Yeah.
You were gonna do an impression, but. He does
well,
have, if there is such a thing as a quintessential Toronto accent, he has it.
That's yes. I would say so, Chris. Yeah.
I've met a few people with that very distinct kind of flat, and only in Toronto. It's almost like, the way Chicago has, there is
the Bears
definable. The hard S on the end of words that it shouldn't be like. Hey, did you get a new pair of jeans? Like
That's true.
TZS or and the
Jeans.
classic. So oh my God, that's very Chicago.
Right.
But Toronto's got that flat vowely,
Yeah.
kind of almost nasal bear-like kind of.
That's
something.
right. Paul Myers does the best Kurt Swinghammer.
That's Edward.
also an FOTM.
Yeah, but I think that's that accent. Is a Toronto?
I think you're right.
A definable Toronto.
I never knew this.
Yeah, which is funny because and you should Toronto mic'd, because Kurt Swinghammer is as I say from Niagara, but developed that, I guess. Maybe it's a Golden Horseshoe accent.
He borrowed my guitar to play the back room of the Cameron once.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't explain to him. It was it's an old Gretsch, and it's got those weird. It's got like an off, the weird kill switch, and it has to be one way or the other. The pickups don't work.
Yeah, nothing happens.
We went on, and he hit this chord, nothing. And he kind of looked at it, and then he looked at me, then he looked at the crowd, and he went, "Hey, that's my sound." That was hysterical. Like great skate save.
That's funny.
I'm going to
That's
ask you guys about another artist. Did you guys know Mendelssohn Joe?
I did, yes.
I did not. Certainly knew of him. He appeared. Rick Mercer did 2 or 3 things with him when the show was in existence. So I did write for the guy, and never having met him.
Right.
And Joe says this, and you'd come up with 20 jokes.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't need it, I'm sure. But
Joe, a very, very interesting character, and I miss him already, but I missed him before because he got sick, and also he moved away quite a while ago. We did talk on the phone a few times. I think the last time was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And he was a lovely guy, a real hard ass, and he didn't suffer fools. But boy, he was a big heart, had a big heart, and a lovely guy. He didn't like politicians much, and he didn't like he was always about following the money, and he was very not cynical, but you'd say something and he'd question it. He wouldn't just let anything go by. I didn't know him well, but I did really like him a lot.
he was very quick to point out what passes as a public servant these days is not what it was in the old days. Okay. Speaking of John Tory, but
well, I'm going to actually bring him up next. But so with Mendelsohn Joe, as you mentioned, he was unwell, Parkinson's, and he took advantage of the new assisted dying law in this country and was able to plan his exit. And I think it's so civilized that he was able to. He literally wrote a farewell note on his website, and with his wife by his side, there was a assisted suicide.
Yeah, he's not the first person in recent weeks to do that. Actually, Al Mayer, who was the owner and founder of Attic Records, it's funny. Richard Flohill, you may know of him, and if you don't, you should have him on your show. He's 88 years old now, and he's a music publicist, and I've known him since I was about 13 years old, and he's a really great guy. He came to see me play at Sauce every Wednesday night from 8 till 10 on Sauce on the Danforth, ladies and gentlemen. But so Richard came to see me, and Al Mayer's name came up. We were just talking because Al took me to see Ricky Gervais at Massey Hall. He had season tickets, and he thought, who would like to see this? Blair Packham, who I really didn't know Al very well, but I mentioned this to Richard, and Richard said, yes, Al is dying on Friday.
Wow.
And I said, well, how do you know that? He said, because he's doing the assisted death thing. And so Al chose to do it that way.
Al had cancer, and he's an FOTM as well. And when he passed, I put together this pretty cool episode in the Toronto Mike feed of like the Attic story as told to me by Al Mayer. And it's quite, I glanced over at the Maestro Fresh West record because Attic distributed it up here in Canada. And I mean, some of the Attic stories, because Weird Al Yankovic was an artist that Attic would distribute in this country. And
Katrina and the Waves.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I think there should be like assisted suicide for anyone who just had a bad set. Just have like a booth, and you're not coming back from that,
booth.
man.
That'd be good. Well, wait, that was in a show. Oh no, you know what? It was in Futurama. They had suicide booths everywhere, like phone booths.
Well, that's that's what worries me a little bit about. I mean, just in my paranoid self, it's like, of course you're for the humane assisted dying thing, but like humans, they always take things away in the wrong direction.
Yes.
There's going to be like, have them at airports. Your flight's delayed, or you can just check out, do some real flying.
That's right.
All right, speaking of career suicide, let's talk a bit here about John Tory, if we can.
If this guy was in France, he'd get 2 more terms after this.
Yeah.
So let's do that, because I hear from people. Now, I'll just preface all this by saying I legit 100% don't care what consensual adult sex that John Tory is having.
100%.
I don't care
who
it's with. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're going to explain what I mean in a minute. But essentially, I don't care if he cheats on his wife. I don't care if he gets what my only concern here and why I think it's a story worthy of publication in the Toronto Star and why I think it's newsworthy and in the public interest is that she was a City Hall staffer, and not only working at City Hall, but his executive assistant, who even accompanied him on city-funded trips to London, England.
Yeah, it's wrong.
It's wrong, and also that he's propping himself up as doing the right thing when the Star told him we're going to publish.
No, they did publish like an hour before.
But they also told him,
Oh, yeah. So
I mean, it's like anyone could go out and go, and he didn't say I'm busted. He said I've decided to do the right thing. But,
right.
There's a little bit of a twist here. I mean, listen, this guy, like, I agree. Like, it's none of my business what this guy does between him and his wife and his family.
Right.
I get really uptight when people start moralizing about somebody else.
Right. We're not the morality police here.
But I mean, there's so many reasons this guy shouldn't be the mayor. Like, we need a pixel scoreboard behind this guy of while he's droning on about how great he is, about people getting stabbed on the subway.
Yeah.
Oh, look, and hey, it's another 10 people while this guy's droning on. Like, he is destroying the city. Property taxes are going through the roof. TTC fares are going up. Man, talk about wow. It's like
counterintuitive move. Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
Not that anybody pays for the TTC anymore, nor should they.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything he's doing is just destroying the place, as far as I can tell. Renovictions.
Yeah.
It's like, I know it's not the Toronto we grew up in, but I don't think I mean, like an 11-year-old can go, we should do raise taxes. Like, that just seems to be like every solution now.
Yeah.
before I start to sound like an old man. But you know what I mean? It's like, I don't
But
think
I
it's
wanted to
warranted.
hear what you guys think because I live in my, I know what I think and it
Yeah.
bounces around my cranium all day and I go on a bike ride and I'm like, yeah, I agree with myself. Like it's like an echo
Yeah.
chamber in my own head.
Well, now, you and I have often talked about how, I'll listen to an episode and I'll say, I knew that guy and I had dinner with that guy. And I used to coach that guy in guitar playing or whatever. And I was the guy, not kidding, who told John Tory to run. So it's all my fault. And I'll tell you how. John Tory used to do his show on CFRB.
Yep.
At the same time I did my show with Bob Reed on CFRB. John would come in and have to do a promo in the middle of our recording, which is a drag. So he'd wait for a pause and then he'd say, fellas, I need to use the room if you don't mind. And we'd say, sure, of course. So he sat down and I left some papers and I had to go get or my phone or something. So I go into the room and Rob Ford had just announced that he had more than enough to eat at home. And so I lean over to John. This had just happened and it was on the TV screen in the control room. So I leaned over and I said, you have to run. You have to throw your hat in the ring. Please, I'm begging you. And he said, well, I've been thinking about it more seriously. And of course, these events, and he started pontificating.
Also, you're not to be held responsible for that.
No,
because
no,
really,
not really, no.
I know, but like also a traffic cone would have been better at that point. Like, so
I did speak to a couple of traffic cones, in fact, as well.
And they were too smart.
Yeah, I did.
Blair, this is a
Yeah.
fun fact.
Yeah.
So at CFRB, you're telling him he should run, and this is the 2014 election when he runs, and that's the election where Rob has to switch spots with Doug because Rob gets sick.
Yeah.
And then the Michael Ford goes. There's
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Oh, I know. And
Toronto history.
I had to stop playing my Rob Ford song because he got sick, and I thought it's just shitty of me. But it was a pretty funny song.
I know, like
Time has passed. We can bring it back.
I always wondered if like the Rob Ford legacy was like. I mean, at the time, of course, it was like when I'm old enough to remember when Reagan was president, and like it's the end of the earth, and now in history it's a footnote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Rob Ford,
Herbert Hoover. Anyway.
in the man's demise, and he did this. I'll give him this. He gave garbage back to the mafia. That was a pretty smart move. Because remember, for a while in Toronto, it was like your garbage had to be like it needs to be tied with a purple ribbon on Tuesday, and don't take it. Like they wouldn't. Now you can leave a body out there.
Yeah,
they're coming by. They'll take it. They don't
they're
care.
making money. Yeah.
They're making money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
for
a good point.
for the average homeowner, it's a little better.
Well, Mr. Dithers is what I call it. In this home, I call John Tory Mr. Dithers. He's always dithering about, everything's about getting the next meeting.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Everything.
That's true.
But if you want action out of this man, the only thing that seemed to spark action and passion out of the man was getting the homeless out of the parks. And it's
Yeah.
like, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, let's get the police
Yeah,
in
if
there
there was
in
a good-
their military outfits. Yeah.
There was a good roasting happening.
Yeah.
He was all in.
He's all for it.
Yeah.
So as we speak, John Tory has not actually resigned, even though Friday we all heard him say, I'm going to resign. And today is, probably the most important meeting of the term. This is the budget meeting today at City Hall, and he's leading that as super mayor.
He should have nothing to do with that budget. On the other hand, who would? Right? Who would be in his place?
Well, they're trying to rush her through. He was shouted down today, so they had to postpone
And
it.
cops were throwing people out of Nathan Phillips, what's it called? City Hall. What do you call that place?
Right. The
Rink, the big rink.
The big sign.
Where they had the Raptor parade. What's that place
with the French fry truck, the good fries.
I played there a couple of times.
Okay, I bet. Is there any venue in the city you haven't played yet, Blair Packham?
The Imperial Room at the Royal York.
We can make that happen.
Okay.
McVee's. You've never played McVe's.
That's
Tavern.
true. I'd have to put on an Irish accent. Yeah. Oh,
That just comes out of you when you're there.
that's right. Oh, hello, everybody. Yeah.
An absurd abuse of power, I think, for a
Yes.
man who's resigning to be.
Agreed.
Well, okay, so there's something going on behind it. I don't know
well,
what it
like,
is.
what do you know?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know.
I love your
that-
thoughts on all
Here's
this.
the thing: I don't know anything, and what I think is a common thought, which is that it's a distraction. It's meant to be a distraction from something that Ford's doing. They're tight, and I think there may be some blackmail involved. It may
You believe that?
Yeah,
This sounds a little conspiracy.
it does, and
theory
I'm
to
not
me.
prone to that. I'm really not. But come on, you have a mayor who smokes crack, Rob Ford, and does egregious thing after egregious thing, and nothing happens to him. And John Tory thinks that he'd better resign over this. when yes, it's an abuse of power, but it's not actually necessarily worse than any other mayor ever, sadly. And I feel like there's something else going on, especially because to me right now the Conservatives are trying to dismantle so many institutions in this province so that they can say, "Yep, see, doesn't work.
Right.
We got to
Healthcare for
privatize
sure.
it."
Right.
You
And it's working, by the way.
Yeah, and it's working, and people aren't even paying attention, and they're not even paying attention enough to vote. So
And they don't even spend the budget.
yeah, and maybe John Tory wasn't playing ball, and so they've given this mayor superpowers, but he's not playing ball. So now they're hoping to install somebody, Michael Ford, who will play ball.
no.
You know, but you know, it doesn't.
Well, I'm calling my friend David Miller. We're going to get him back in
Oh
town.
boy, I personally think that'd be fantastic.
There was a
but-
story today about the Liberals' federal diversity minister is going to make a run for the mayorship.
Wow.
Yeah. What I've noticed is happening now, and Ford started this sort of ball rolling this morning, I think, because he wants Tory to stay desperately, is that they're starting to float this, if Toronto gets a lefty mayor.
Oh, yeah, I heard Doug say
Oh,
that,
boy,
yeah.
it's all. So now they're starting to sail that balloon.
Yeah, I hope
You know.
Nenshi moves from Calgary and becomes our mayor.
There
know?
you go. I'm
Yeah.
into that.
How about Jacinda Ardern?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
her name?
yeah. That's
Ardern.
right. Yeah, Ardern
Sure.
from New Zealand.
Yeah, come over and run Toronto.
Yeah, I mean,
You can do it in your sleep,
I
for God's
personally
sake.
think that balance in politics is a really good idea. I like minority governments, and I
And-
think having a lefty mayor to balance against the province would be a really good thing.
I wonder how much. Do you think a lot of it came down to Mega City and what
Yep.
and what they did with the amalgamation? Because now it's like downtown Toronto is the forgotten.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore because they know the votes come in from the suburbs.
Yeah.
They bring in.
But how did David Miller win 2 terms? Right?
Yeah, well, was that during
He's
Mega
a
City?
downtown. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
because
Oh.
Mel Lastman was the first mayor of the Mega City. Then
Right.
David.
Right,
Then
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's and the third one was
The
Rob Ford.
megacity, the sheer megacity of it.
He walked the line pretty cleverly about never saying he was a liberal.
That's true. Yeah, but
Well,
he's
because he's probably NDP.
but yeah,
But also like wise to sort of look,
like
not
hands
on
off
either
sort of.
side.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Like, yeah.
city politics, that's what they're supposed to be, but you don't get that with a guy named Tory.
Yeah.
You know.
Red Tory.
Isn't he still
Yeah.
getting a yearly paycheck?
Okay,
from
so here
Rogers?
Yes,
I can tell you, it's
100,000 a
the
year.
Rogers Family Trust. So he's an advisor to the Rogers Family Trust for $100,000 a year. It always stunk, especially
Yeah,
when the Blue Jays were saying,
always.
Yeah.
"Stop the active TO because we don't get enough people at the Dome." And then it's like suddenly my active, which I partook in all the time, they stopped it. Like the conflict of interest was always there,
Yeah.
and that's why this story, which I think he thought he could stop the investigation, the story by resigning or announcing he's going to resign, because of course this woman who I've decided not to name, but everybody who cares to know already knows her name, but this woman who was the City Hall staffer who had this inappropriate relationship with John Tory is now at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which is 37.5% owned by Rogers. Like the whole thing. There's more to the
stinks.
story. And,
The whole
and
thing
there's more
stinks.
threads.
Yeah.
It stank then and it stinks now. I
Yep.
think that's a Lisa Simpson quote.
There you go.
It's a huge conflict of interest. It's to be fair to Tory, getting kickbacks is his first love. So,
Allegedly.
yeah.
Allegedly.
Like Lorne Honickman
Yeah.
will call me and say, you can't say those things on your show. But I did not say it, and I said it allegedly.
And we'll add allegedly. I mean, he was a nice friendly fellow at CFRB.
He's
Yeah.
friendly.
Very
I had a
affable.
private chat with him at the
Yeah.
Pumpkin Parade in Mimico. And he's on episode 1000.
He
He's
he congratulated you.
I have nothing but great personal experiences with him because he knows your name.
Yeah.
He's
He's a good politician.
He's a likable chap when
Yeah.
you meet that guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, lousy there. But as we speak, he has not resigned. So I just wonder now whether he's going to be talked into sticking it out.
Oh,
and
God, I hope not.
it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
Like anything's possible at Toronto City Hall.
I would imagine if he feels he can get away with it, of course he will. Yeah, I mean,
But no one said he had to resign in the first place. This is my beef, which is that we didn't I was shocked when he resigned. Like I knew the story before. I knew the
Yeah,
story.
you did, yeah.
Is it
And
pretty-
I did not think he would resign over it. So when he said he was resigning, I was as shocked as anybody. And he did that. Like there's no law that said he had to resign. There's no law against what he did. He decided to resign. And to resign on a Friday,
Oh.
and then, you know what I mean? And then put
Yeah.
this chaos into into play, and then to not actually step aside. I just
He's
don't
going to
have
look
time for
pretty
this.
wishy-washy no matter what. I mean, also, what do you do? What's he going to do? Go out and go, yeah, well, you know what? Yeah, I've been sleeping with a staffer for a long time. What do you think? What do you think I should do?
Yeah.
Like, you can't,
Yeah.
you can't leave it open. You'd look even more
Yeah.
ridiculous. But
I would have respected him more if he had resigned at 9 a.m. on a Monday.
Right,
I'm not
yeah, because
kidding.
Monday morning he could
Yeah.
file that paper. Yes.
Yeah, and do
and
it.
I thought he would actually.
and do it and live with it. That would be the right thing. If you're going to do it, that would be the right thing to do.
or just say, you know what? She's 31 and I love her, damn it.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
we're taking off to live in the south of France.
Yeah, that's right.
Fill your boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I would have had some respect for him.
That's true. Yeah.
Fill your boots. All right, last couple of minutes here.
Okay.
One thing I'll share, and then I'll find out if you have anything more to share. Chris, this is your debut. You're now in FOTM. How was the experience?
No, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks.
All right, you get the lasagna. Okay. So, quick thing about
Is that code?
Wait a second. If he, yeah, that's code. Yeah, that's bro talk.
I'm
Yeah.
iced. That's Etobicoke for, let's get rid of him.
that's how we talk in South
You can
Dakota.
have the lasagna if you know what I mean. Yeah.
That's funny.
But wait, had
Yeah.
he answered incorrectly, would I get his lasagna?
No, neither of you would get lasagna. I consider you a package deal.
Oh,
Like it's a bundle.
It was my New Year's resolution was to finally maybe get off my ass and promote my projects a little more. So I do appreciate
And his website, the Canadian with ER at the end,
on the interweb.
on the interweb, which you can get at home now. It's so funny.
Mobile version.
He is so way funnier than any of these stupid little jokes I'm making. It's very funny, and it's a take on current events. And
Well, I'm gonna
have you
bookmark
written
it. I'm
something
gonna
about
check it out.
Tori already?
I did. I posted 2 days ago about Tory.
There you go.
And I'm concocting another one. But as a teaser, I
was
think
that
I'm
word?
going to do a Trump thing next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
do
there
it.
you go.
By the way, just a quick side on the Tory story, which is on Saturday morning, I had David Ryder on this program, and
That's
we
good.
talked about how the story, and it got a lot of traction, and people found it some good behind the scenes stuff. So if you're at all curious of how, like, when did the Star get the story, what did they do, when did they tell Tory they had the story, all those nuts and bolts thing that I'm always curious about. It's all in that Saturday morning episode with David Ryder. Okay, real quick on my hair. So. Since I got married, which was almost 10 years ago, my wife has been cutting my hair. This is a fact I'm divulging to you two gentlemen right now. So she cuts my hair periodically, and I like it because I hate going to I hate to go to a barber or whatever and get my hair cut. I just don't like to sit there and have my hair cut. And Monica would do it, and she seemed fine with it. But at some point, I guess it became very mushroomy, unruly, this hair of mine. It's very thick, and it's going crazy. And she told me she's not. I have to go to a pro, and then she can maintain it again. Are you a professional hair cutter, Blair?
Oh, me?
Yeah, well, you had your hand up.
Oh, no, I thought you were looking at Chris.
I thought you were
No,
gonna cut my hair.
I have the coolest hair cutter.
Me
I have
too.
The coolest. Same guy?
No.
Oh,
Well,
okay. No, you have a very
Yeah.
cool one too. But
All right, well,
okay.
here.
I know who you're going to say.
Okay.
This is how long we've known each other.
Yeah, that's
Who
true.
is it?
We know each other's
Mine
stylists.
is Don Pyle, drummer in Shadowy Men from A Shadowy Planet.
Speaking
who did the
of-
theme
yeah,
for the kids in the hall.
course.
And he's a fantastic
Wow.
guy, and he cuts my hair about every 3 months.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would,
Yeah.
I wish. Okay, so because when I
I'll-
finish the
I'll
story,
hook
you
you
realize
up.
you could hook me up. But here, so Monica said you have to. So I haven't been to a pro in over a decade, but I actually have in my calendar for later this afternoon, this evening, I guess. I'm going to a local guy who cuts hair, and I wish I knew the name of this place. I can't remember what it's called right now. The Neighborhood Barbershop or something, which is here in New Toronto.
Sounds like a
I'm gonna-
trap.
Yeah, I'm getting it. So this is a big day. For the first time, I think, yes, if I do the math, this is the first time in the history of this podcast that I will have had a professional cut my hair. It's happening tonight.
We can hardly
That is,
wait.
it is people, you might sound like you're making light, but that's a big thing.
It is
Thank
a big
you.
a big thing.
I thought it was a big thing. This
Yeah.
podcast is almost 11 years old, and this is the first time I've had a professional cut my hair since I started this podcast.
I think it's my last vanity is that I actually have hair left and that I do take care of it.
Well, you had a hat on the whole time.
Oh, he
right?
has a- he
What's
has a
going
good
on
head.
under there?
He
He's
has
got a
a
good
good
head
head
of
of
hair.
No, there's a good Irish.
Yeah.
There's a good Irish mop under
Take
here.
it off. Let me
Chris
see this.
is-
The SO hat's coming off.
Look at
Okay.
that. It's full head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
So Chris's hair cutter is Suzanne McGlynn.
Yes.
Am I getting her name right? Yes. She's lovely. She's very, very good.
This city's full of great
She was
hair
she was never the drummer in a great band, though, as far as I know.
And this,
I think I feel like I just heard, and maybe I'm not sure where I heard it, but on something I was listening to recently, gave the story of how Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, how that song became the Kids in the Hall anthem.
Yeah, I don't know that story. I'll ask Don next time I get my hair cut.
The song
It was
is
played at the
called-
live events, and then it stuck, and then they.
Well, every taping, the band was live.
Yeah.
but
right,
even
which is
before they
amazing.
had the show, they
Yeah.
would play it when they
Yes.
would the Rivoli and all that stuff.
The song is called "Having an Average Weekend."
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I still have that vinyl. I used to open for the Kids in the Hall at their studio shows, and I remember always just like getting such a rush when they'd play "You On."
Yes.
Wow.
And it was so much fun to do that gig, man. First of all, it was $400, which then was like, wow,
That's a lot today.
That's almost rent. You kidding me? You know,
It's a lot today.
Yeah,
I love that troupe. I mean, Kids in the Hall
fantastic.
would hit me at just the perfect time in my formative years.
I don't-
loved it.
I don't think they know the effect and influence they had on the Canadian and wider comedy scene. But I can remember I met Dave Foley doing commercials with him. We did these ads for Pepsi in like 88 or 89 or something. And he invited me to the Rivoli, and I hadn't seen the kids. And I was at the downtown club, and I ran into Norm Macdonald. And I said, hey, I'm on the list to go see the Kids in the Hall. You want to come? And he goes, yeah, I hear they're great. So we went and saw them. Wow. I had no idea what I was walking into, but we just felt like yesterday's papers. Like, I remember just sort of feeling so like, I suck. Like they were light years ahead of what they were talking about, what they were doing. And I remember Norm, especially after that, his writing got so much tighter. It really lit a fire under his ass, I think, because he could be competitive that way.
And to bring everything full circle, because he came up earlier, but do you know who wrote the book on the Kids in the Hall?
Yeah.
Paul Myers.
Oh, the Gravelberries own.
That's right.
Wow. You guys, this was fantastic. And I said 90 and I hit 90. Blair, final thoughts.
Paul married me on a beach to my wife,
Right.
Arlene Bishop, my ex-wife. He and his wife married us. Just the four of us on a beach, San Francisco.
That's like one of the Blair Packham greatest hits. I could never get tired of that one.
Wait, is this Ron Hawkins?
Yes.
Ron and I were... No, anyway.
Everyone has a Ron Hawkins story.
That's
Chris,
true.
you got a Ron Hawkins story?
I don't. Just my final thought, be careful of neighborhood hair barber
Yeah, the
shop.
neighborhood.
He's
I feel like
really
it's called the
warning you
neighborhood.
off.
It's like
Well,
an
I'll let you
episode
know
of
how it
Batman.
goes.
Yeah.
It's on Lake Shores, so I feel like it's
visible.
people will be able to see through the window if I'm in
Quick escape.
if I'm in distress.
Quick
Check
escape
for
route.
exits before you sit down.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,204th show. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Toronto Mike. Blair is at Blair Packham. Chris is at Canadianer. So it's a Canadian with an ER at the end. Canadianer. I got to guess. And it's a good follow. Follow Chris, and he told you the website's Canadianer.com. I can't say most words, Chris. So okay. Our friends at Great Lakes Brewery are at Great Lakes Beer. Palma Pasta's at Palma Pasta. Recycle My Electronics are at EPRA_Canada. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca. Find out where you can drop your old tech so it can be safely recycled. Oh, yes, and everybody's getting a Ridley Funeral Home. That's for you guys. That's a measuring tape from Ridley Funeral Home. You can measure anything you want. They're at Ridley FH. And Canna Cabana are at CannaCabana_. See you all next week when my guest is Steve Ryan from CP24.
Told massage is the best that I can.